Hey guys, it's me, Javier, and guess whose birthday it is? It's Pretend's birthday. It's Pretend is 4 years old, and I wanted to celebrate with a special episode, so I invited only one friend to my party, and that is Jules Hannaford from the Fool Me Twice podcast, which is a true crime podcast about con artists, which we all love. And season 2 of Fool Me Twice is coming out, and Jules lives in Hong Kong on the other side of the world. And today is my Friday, and today is her Saturday morning. It's my Friday night, Saturday morning. Trying to arrange a Zoom call was a nightmare, but we made it happen. Welcome, Jules. Welcome
Hey,
to
Javier,
Pretend.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to see you, and I'm so honored to be here. And I've loved your podcast over the years. I don't know which season's my favorite, but I just couldn't wait for every episode. I love it. So, and it's so interesting that we've both done podcasts on con artists.
I know, it's weird. What
Yeah,
does it say about us? And I
yeah.
guess we're
So
not the only ones invited to the birthday party. All of you who are listening are part of Pretend's 4-year-old birthday party.
yeah,
So,
happy
because
birthday, happy anniversary for 4 years. It's amazing that you've been doing it for so long.
can you believe that we've been doing it for so long? Because it's not just me doing it for so long. I mean, you've been a podcaster with, your original podcast, which was Hong Kong Confidential. I mean, how long have you been doing podcasts?
Yeah, that one's 4 years in September.
You see, we
So
started
yeah,
around the
so
same
yeah,
time.
we
Jules
did
and
start
I,
around the same time.
yeah, we go way back. So I asked Jules to come over here on the show and just let's talk pretend because there's so many episodes. And like you said, there are so many episodes. People ask me which one's my favorite episode, and that's really hard for me to do. So I figured, hey, why not? Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't pick one that I love of yours, but I love the whole Jane Whaley series. That was amazing. I
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
loved
Well,
it. Oh,
it's so funny. If I am known for one thing, it is definitely the Word of Faith
yeah.
Fellowship season for sure, hands down. I mean, when we went to what was it, the True Crime Podcast
True crime.
Festival in
Yeah.
Chicago, I mean,
Hmm.
it was just question after question about the cult in Western North Carolina. For sure, that is like my greatest hit song, I guess. My
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember listening to it and just feeling nervous as you were going into like on the ground reporting and incognito. And I just was like, oh my gosh, how is he doing it? It was amazing. I just, really felt that energy with you. And it was just such a great story, and you delivered it so well.
Well, I'm glad that you felt that way because that's exactly how I felt, and I wanted you to feel that way because I didn't know how else to communicate that because I remember that feeling in my stomach still to today I was minutes away from actually being dropped off at that church, and my stomach, when your stomach just goes blah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah. That nervous
melts.
feeling.
Oh
Yeah. I couldn't
yeah.
believe you were putting yourself in that position. Like how courageous.
Yeah, I know,
It
and
was,
it's kind of crazy, and even to today, I mean, every time I approach a story, not every story, but there's a story that John and I want to do for criminal conduct for a future season that just the thought of it freaks me out. It involves the Mexican drug cartel, and I'm
oh
like,
my gosh. Oh
I
my
don't know.
gosh. So you're just going to elevate your risk, aren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. I don't know if I want to mess with those guys. I've
No.
messed with sheriffs, but the cartel, I feel like that's going too far. I feel like I'm not doing a good job if I'm not nervous. Not
Mm,
all the time, because not every story is this huge investigation, but I always try to pick one or two stories a season that
no.
to
Yeah.
dig myself into.
What was it? Which is the story with the guy? Was it a helicopter or a plane?
Oh yeah, the hijacker.
Ah, that
That was
one. I
cool.
love that one. That was
I'm glad you
brilliant.
asked about that one because that
Yeah,
one
that was a great one as well. That had me on the edge of my seat, and I loved it.
Yeah, not only was that fun to make, but that was really frustrating after it aired because this guy, Martin McNally, he hijacked a plane around the same time as DB Cooper. And the first time you ever heard his voice on any podcast, any TV news was on my show.
Is
My
that
friend Chris
right?
Niddle interviewed him. And guess what? After we aired that episode, Phoebe Judge of Criminal did that episode on her show, and then they created a whole
No way.
series on the
What?
hijacker. So
Did they really? Oh my gosh, you're a groundbreaker.
I know, but you know, it's like I don't own that story, but it is. It was like, wait a minute, we did it first.
Yeah, yeah. At least
But
give us a plug.
nobody remembers that. But yeah.
Oh, congratulations. That's quite amazing that you're so groundbreaking. But yeah, I thought that episode was just gripping. I loved it. It was great.
Well,
But
you know,
I've loved all
there's
your
certain
episodes.
rules that I have for pretend and for criminal
Hmm.
conduct too, which is I don't want to tell you a story that you already know. So that's one of the rules. I'm like every time I interview somebody or I talk about somebody, I want to tell the story in a different way. The most high profile person I interviewed was Uri Geller, the guy that bends the spoons, the
Oh,
psychic.
yeah.
Yeah.
My uncle used to be friends with him back in the 60s
Oh,
and the
really?
70s. Yeah. Yeah. He used to go have dinner parties with him. How
That's
bizarre is
just
that?
did
I
he
remember
bend all the
thinking,
did he bend all the
yes,
spoons at the dinner
yes,
time?
and taught my uncle to levitate. Seriously.
And I had fun with that one because the only thing I wanted to get James Randi, but he was sick. He was getting old, and he's passed away since. But I got the
Oh,
second best, which was his protege, Banishek, which is a magician, and he was able to tell us some stories about James Randi back in the day.
yes.
But magicians
Yeah.
are con artists, right? Because they're
Yeah.
fooling people.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So where are you gonna go next with Pretend? What sort of cons are you looking at following up on in the future?
You know, it was so funny. Before we started recording, you said that you felt like you almost ran out of people to talk to in
Mm.
Hong Kong
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
interview.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like, am I running out of con artists or am I running out of
Surely not.
story ideas? And I always feel that way. Every season I feel
Mm.
that way. And I don't. I'm not out of stories for sure. I'm doing this whole
No.
series on hypnosis that's coming up.
Ah,
Yeah, and it's really interesting
great.
because the whole question is it started off with I did this series on the lie detector of how to fool polygraph test, and the guy who was
Oh, that was a great one
that was
too.
a
I
great one,
love
yeah.
that one. Yeah.
And he was saying that the way to fool is to put yourself in a state of self hypnosis. And during the research of that show, I was watching these YouTube videos of women giving natural labor without any anesthesia, just doing self hypnosis, and I was like, I can't even imagine how painful that was. But then I saw somebody getting their tooth extracted without any anesthesia. And by the way, sorry, that was my dog. You're gonna hear dogs in this episode.
I've
And they
heard
were
of
getting their
people go,
teeth.
yeah, no, I've heard of people having proper operations with hypnosis and no anesthetic. I
But
don't know
that's
if that's true or not.
crazy.
I know it's crazy. And is it really true?
Well, I asked my dentist because I went and I got
Mm.
some dental work done, and I said, "Is this true? And have you ever heard of this?" And he said, "Yeah, actually, when I was in right out of medical school or dentistry school or whatever, he said there was a woman that said, I don't want any anesthesia, just give me, 5 minutes so I could get in the zone or whatever." And he's like. He was like, no, I'm already nervous because you're like one of the first people I'm drilling into, and she's like, no, trust me, I just need 5 minutes, and he drilled and filled the cavity without any anesthesia, and it freaked him
Oh
out.
my gosh,
Yeah.
that's true.
Well, so anyway,
Wow.
so that kind of snowballed into something else, right? Because I'm wondering, is this bullshit, right? is,
Yeah.
is hypnosis real? And then I
Yeah.
find out that hypnosis is actually used as evidence or testimony in court, and some people have been found guilty using that as evidence. So I really want to just pick apart this idea of is hypnosis real? And the
Great.
whole aspect of it and the role it plays in our legal system. So that's my big investigation for the next season. And I got a lot of other stories. I have this great bank robbery story, which I won't get into, and
Oh,
just
cool.
another stalker story. Yeah.
And you've had romance scam stories before, haven't you? I remember you did one in season 1 or 2.
Yeah, and that's actually the
Mm.
most common one, right? So when listeners submit stories, they're always submitting stories about either being catfished or
Mm.
romance scams. Those
Mm.
seem to be the
Mm.
most common.
It's a $1 billion industry. It really is huge. And it's grown exponentially during COVID. So
And it's easy to
everybody's
do
doing it.
because if I had to boil down a con into like a mathematical equation, it takes a con artist plus you plus wanting that con artist in. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to accept that con artist in, because if you don't, if you shut that con artist out, they have nowhere to go. But you have to be willing to accept them, and romance. I mean, scams are fit perfectly into that equation. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, they do. And on top of that, the technology is getting greater and greater, so that the scammers have got more ways that they can actually convince you that they're real when they're not. Like
That's right.
back in the day when I got scammed in 2010 for Fool Me Twice One, there just wasn't the, there wasn't the ability to create fake videos, or even people's Photoshop skills for photos, and providing evidence just weren't as good as they are now. So things have changed a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. And by the
Yeah.
way, yeah, Fool Me Twice season 1 is amazing. So if you haven't listened to it, listen to it now.
Oh,
And then
thank you so
season
much.
2 is coming out, which is super exciting. Well, and I'm gonna play the promo, on my feed. So if you're just listening to this now and you haven't listened to Jules' season 2 promo for Fool Me Twice, go ahead. It's in my feed right now. You can listen to it.
Oh,
So
thank you so much.
yeah, Pretend has really taken me to some far off places that I never thought I would be 4 years later.
And what's the scariest thing that you've done? Is it the Jane Whaley thing?
Yeah, for Pretend, by far, the Jane Whaley
Yeah,
thing was the
that's when
scariest
I
thing.
felt the most scared listening.
The second scariest thing I've ever done was Criminal Conduct season 1, because, we're reporting about this potentially corrupt sheriff's department, and we're driving down there and they know we're there, and it's just like I'm thinking, are we going to get thrown in jail? Like, are we going to get murdered? Because the last guy that was looking into the story got murdered. So,
I know,
are we? I
it's
know.
crazy.
Yeah.
That must have been quite scary. It was amazing how that all came about.
Yeah.
Have you learnt any more since the series finished?
Yeah, we have not stopped reporting on season 1, and there has not been movement in the case, right, for either Michelle or Eli. But we've learned some new things that we didn't know when we did season 1, and we've been recording some interviews. And also, there's just some things that are happening now that weren't possible when we were reporting on it on season 1. So don't be surprised if there's some major update episode coming in the near
Yeah,
future.
that'd be great. I think everyone will jump on that. They'll be really interested to see what's going on.
Yeah,
And
for
what
sure.
about season two? Was that as nerve-wracking? And it's so interesting that I've heard that those guys have been arrested.
Yeah,
So
so
it's two, is it two policemen?
it's 2 constables, which I didn't
Yeah.
know going into this what a constable was. I mean, I heard the term, but I didn't really know. And it turns out that there's constables in the UK, there's constables in
Yeah.
Canada, but the
Hmm.
constables change depending on where you are. But in
Hmm.
Kentucky, okay, in Kentucky and specifically Pulaski County, constables have the power of a sheriff. So they are a one man sheriff's office. So they
Ah.
could drive police cars. They carry guns. They could arrest people. Um, yeah, and they're
Oh, I
voted
didn't know
in, so
that.
you can't fire them. They're like
Oh
super
my
powerful.
gosh.
And then when they seize your property, they get to keep 75 to 80% of that, of what they seize. So it creates this perverse incentive for them to plant drugs on people, falsely arrest people. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. And when we started season 2, it wasn't our original season 2. Our original season 2 was something else, but COVID happened. And so we were like, what story can we do remotely? And so we found this story, and the timing was perfect, because just as we were wrapping up season 2, the FBI basically did an undercover sting. Well, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to spoil it for you guys,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
those
yeah.
but
No.
those 2 guys, they ran out of luck. Let's just put it that way. And just today, the day we're recording,
I know. I just saw that on
some big
Facebook
news.
before we
Yeah.
met that they've been arrested. But what I want to know is, has your podcast had any link with their arrest, do you think?
No. I think that
It's
it was a
completely
long
separate.
time coming for those
They've right.
guys.
They've been right. Okay.
People knew about it. The local police knew about it. The sheriffs knew about it. The politicians knew about it. I just think it's awesome that we did our podcast because now it's out in the open. It's in their face, and people know about it, and people are mad. And that's the whole point. You
Phoebe
know?
Judge will be doing another one.
Yeah, just wait till Phoebe Judge does it better, and you know.
Yeah. Oh,
Phoebe,
brilliant.
if you're listening, call me.
Yeah. Get Javier on as a guest, Phoebe. Come on, at
That's
least.
right. That's right. We
But
live in the same town, right?
oh no, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, you should stalk her.
Yeah, she's awesome. I mean, she's
Yeah,
actually
she's
one of
amazing.
we're kidding. We're kind of beating her up a little bit, but
Yeah,
she's
no,
actually
no,
one
we
of
love
my.
her.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of one of the main influences for my show, and part of the reason why I got into podcasting to begin with. So I love her storytelling style. Yeah.
So tell me how you did get into podcasting. What was it that made you kind of work full time, be a dad of two girls, and then put a lot of time into doing this kind of investigative reporting, which takes a long time?
Yeah, well, I come from a journalism background. That's where I started my career in news, local news, but then I also did documentaries for the local public television station, and that was amazing.
Yeah. And do you think you'll continue doing pretend and criminal conduct? Like you'll keep doing different series of both?
I really have a fantasy about doing documentaries. I would love to do a video version of Pretend. That was always the idea. I always wanted to do this as a documentary, but I realized that documentaries are hard to produce. They take lots of people.
Yeah, they
lots of
do. A
time.
lot of money.
But what's interesting is John and I, for Criminal Conduct, shot during COVID. This is like during the height of COVID. We went down to Florida and we shot a documentary for Discovery ID on Criminal Conduct season 1, and it's all about John and I, which is really weird because I'm used to being behind the camera or behind the microphone, but never in front of it.
No, you got to start hosting. Yeah.
Yeah. So this comes out in July, like at the end of July, and we're gonna be all over TV. And
oh my gosh! So what's it about?
It's about Criminal Conduct season 1.
How cool! How did that come about?
July 27th on Discovery ID. I think it's called Citizen PI or something like that.
Oh, how cool! How did that come about? How did you end up doing this?
Every now and then I get little bites here and there to do TV, and a lot of times it goes nowhere. And this one, they approached us and they heard season 1 and they wanted to develop it into like an episode of a long series. It's a lot like the series Don't Fuck with Cats on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen that.
That was crazy. I have. That was full on.
Really terrible, but I mean, great show, but just terrible the brutality in that. But this is about sleuths and citizen private investigators, and so they asked us, and we went down there and shot a whole episode. It was cool.
Oh, brilliant! That's amazing.
So July 27th. We've been in this thing for so long, and neither of us would have imagined that we're doing these multi-season podcast, but here we are. Right?
I would never have. And even just to get the recognition or the listeners and the downloads and the reviews and all that sort of thing, the Patreon sponsors,
that's too much.
It's just been amazing. Like we're both really lucky. We've both got great really audiences.
Jules and I were saying that we got in right as that window was closing.
We did. We just got into the heyday times, didn't we? Where podcasting, like I think there were only about 800,000 podcasts on Apple. Yeah, that's not many. I mean, there's probably 3 million now. Did you know that during COVID, Amazon sold out of microphones? Because everybody was, because at one stage, because everyone's starting a podcast.
Well, my numbers are actually going down since COVID. It was like the first time in the show's history that the numbers have been going down for both shows. And I just, I hope you still like what I'm doing, but I blame it on COVID and lack of commute and all the celebrity podcasters that are just sitting home bored, just chatting with their friends.
There's loads of people that have jumped on the bandwagon, and the celebrity ones have that selling power. But I honestly think it's people at home with their children. They don't get the time, and also they're not commuting. I think so many people listen to podcasts when they're traveling.
Yeah, yeah. The listeners are the best. They're actually
Yeah,
like what keeps me going.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
honestly, I mean, podcasting takes so much time away from my family, and it's so rewarding at the same time. Just because I love getting messages from my listeners telling me that they love the show, or they have a story to share. Because a lot of times, like, I don't even need to find stories. Stories come to me. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, same for me. That
Oh,
I'm exactly the same. Does your wife ever worry about the risk that you put yourself under? Is that something that comes up?
I
Or is
think
she
she
like,
does. I was
but she
here's
must be
here.
getting used to
So
us, used
here,
to it.
yeah. I mean, she doesn't. She just like, she's like, here he goes again. Just doing his thing. Like the other day, I went downstairs and I was like, you'll never guess who I talked to, because this is like for my next season. I talked to a former KGB agent, and she's like,
Did you?
yeah, I did. I was like, she's like, of course you did.
Yeah, yeah. She's used to it now.
But it was such a great interview, Jules, because I got to tell you,
Ah,
I got to be honest with you. And you know this too, when you're producing these shows, they take a lot out of you. They're so draining, and I have been producing Pretend nonstop for a whole year. I wanted to see if I could keep it going without stopping. And then Criminal Conduct started, and I was really getting burnt out. And I was at a low, and I just wanted a break. But then I talked to this KGB agent, and it was such a phenomenal interview that even he lost track of time. And it was like a 2-hour interview. And he goes, "You're good. You're really good." Because I said a lot more than I wanted to. And he really enjoyed that interview. And that's coming out the next season. So,
how
yeah.
exciting. That's so cool. Yeah, it's lovely when you do something like that where you get re-energized, where you
Yeah.
just think, oh my gosh, this is why I'm doing it. And we all have those
Yeah.
interviews or those experiences.
It's
And
like I get depleted, but then like I get my cup fills up again.
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
also another partnership with Chris Niddle. Hopefully, I'm trying to convince him, because he recorded this interview years ago. Years ago. It's been sitting in the back burner for years. He doesn't know what to do with it. So I'm going to put it together and see if we can play it on Pretend. And it is a woman, a Scandinavian woman, blonde hair, pale skin, who marries a terrorist, and she converts to fundamental Islam, and he was on like the most wanted list. And so we're gonna put that story together, because her story is just fascinating to hear.
Is she the one that went and moved and lived with him and had
Yeah,
children,
had
and
bunch of
and then
kids.
he died and then she came
Yeah,
back and all that?
yeah,
Yes, I've read that story.
yeah. Isn't
I
that
know about
crazy?
her. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
That will be such a good
Oh
podcast.
my God.
Yeah.
So there's lots of cool stuff cooking. It's just a matter of getting it
Time.
done.
Yeah, yeah. So what would be your tip for anybody who was interested in getting into podcasting? What would you say to them?
I come at it just the same way I did, with no expectations. Just do it for fun if you want to do it, but don't expect. I run a local podcast meetup group here in North Carolina where I live, and I always tell people, don't expect that it's going to be a hit. Don't expect that you're going to get a bunch of ad money. Don't expect anything, really. You're lucky if 5 people listen to it. You're lucky if 100 people listen to it. And if 1 million people listen to it, you're even luckier. So just do it for
Yeah.
fun. Because
Yeah.
honestly, like 4 years later, the only thing that keeps me going is the fact that it's fun. It's not that there's money behind it, because there's not. It's not that it's giving me more free time, because it's not. I just do it because I really enjoyed telling stories, and I feel
I'm
like
the same.
sometimes it helps people, the stories that I'm telling.
Oh, look, I think that it definitely helps people for sure. Have you faced any kind of criticism or any negative reviews or anything like that? And if you have, how have you dealt with them?
Yeah, I get, it's funny because this is something that females usually get, bad reviews for, but they say that I have, I just did it. I mean, everybody does that, or say like too much, which I'm trying to control. And they say that I have vocal fry, which is
Oh,
usually
yeah, that,
like
yeah, that.
a slam against women, which usually they don't criticize men for. But I don't know. I mean, you know, I take and I look at my bad reviews and I dismiss them because I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? If you don't like my show, don't listen to it. You know. But
Yeah.
obviously, somebody likes the show because
Yeah.
you
There's
talking
loads of
about
people
it. It
listening.
gets thousands of downloads a day. So I try to force myself to pay attention to the positive ones, although it's that one negative one that really stings the most.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. I have to say, I think you've got a fantastic voice. It's very rich and I love
Oh,
listening
thank you.
to it. Yeah, so you've got a great voice for podcasting, and I think that enhances your podcast for sure. Because there are some podcasts that I'm interested in, but then I can't listen because of the voice sometimes.
Yeah, well, you have a fantastic voice. So anybody with
Americans love
Australian,
Australian
yeah,
accents.
yeah, you could read War and Peace, and we'd be like, oh, tell me more, Jules.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I remember listening. I got Drew Barrymore's book, and I got it as a Audible, and I was listening to it, and she reads it, and I just couldn't stand it because she just kept screaming,
Oh
and
no,
it was just like, oh, it was awful. So I couldn't listen to the whole thing. Sorry, Drew, when she's listening.
she's not listening. Don't worry. Jules, thank you so much for celebrating my 4-year-old birthday with me. Otherwise,
Oh, happy
AKA
birthday.
anniversary, but I like to call it a
Yeah,
birthday
happy
because
birthday. Yeah, because you did give birth to this podcast,
I
and it
gave
is a
birth to
labor
it
of love.
with
Yeah.
under hypnosis, so it didn't even hurt.
What? You
I'm
weren't
just
under
kidding.
hypnosis.
You
Yeah,
know
I
how
was
we
gonna
talk
say.
about like people giving
Yeah,
birth?
I knew you were lying.
The show just
You can't
slipped
con
right
me.
out. Yeah.
Look, thank you so much for all your support over the years. Thank you for playing my promo for Fool Me Twice too. I'm so excited for its release next month.
Oh, if you haven't listened to it, you
Yeah,
have to. It's going to be so good. I can't wait to listen to
yeah,
it.
awesome. And yeah, look, let's just stay in touch, and congratulations on all your success. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next.
Oh, same here, Jules. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. And I feel like I'm talking to somebody from the future because it's tomorrow where you are. So this is
yeah, yeah,
really cool for me. And I really
exactly.
appreciate you coming on the show. And for all of you who are listening now, stay tuned because the new season will start at any moment as soon as I could get it done. Trust me, I have plenty of stuff. I just have to get it done.
Time,
Yeah.
finding that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. We were saying goodbye.
Yeah, yeah. I know we could chat for hours.
All right, Jules.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
so
great to
much.
see you. Have a lovely evening.
All
Thanks a
right,
lot,
take care.
Javier.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. All right.